Staten Island is a political island in New York City. It is the only part of New York City that consistently votes Republican. Donald Trump won Staten Island by 10 points. Donald Trump was wiped out everywhere else in New York City. And that's why I had my eye on Staten Island on election night, thinking that if Staten Island turns blue, then the Democrats are going to win the House of Representatives. And that is exactly what happened. Joining us now is the Democratic Congressman-elect Max Rose, who flipped New York's 11th district in Staten Island. Max, thank you very much for joining us tonight. You brought some very powerful assets as a campaigner, as an Afghanistan combat veteran, campaigning in Staten Island, but you knew it was a challenge trying to appeal to Republican voters in Staten Island. How did you do it?
Well, sure, Staten Island isn't filled with Republican voters or Democratic voters. It's filled with people who vote for the person and not the party. And that's, what we did. We sought out to earn people's trust, to present them with a vision for how government and America as a whole can solve their problems, whether it's in regards to a commuting nightmare or the opioid epidemic or gun violence in this country. So this was never about flipping this seat. This was always about changing politics in this country, and that's what we're set out to do. We're just getting started.
But you were running against Donald Trump in that he endorsed your opponent, strongly supported your opponent. And Staten Island never really pays attention to trends. I mean, it lives within New York City as, a Democratic bastion, and it has floated out there in the water as a Republican bastion, ignoring the trends in New York City.
Well, last I checked, Donald Trump wasn't on the ballot. I was running against a gentleman who I didn't think was serving the community in the way that he should be, and so we ran against him and we beat him, and that's what matters. And now we have to get to work. We've got to have an Interstate Highway Act of the 21st century where we can, get a South ferry on the South Shore and double the number of buses on Staten Island and get some funding for our trains in South Brooklyn, because the R train is late more than it's on time. We're losing hundreds of people to the opioid epidemic. I want to see us double the number of treatment options on Staten Island. These are things that Democrats have also proposed in years past, and then they've gone down to Washington, D.C. and acted according to the interests of their donors and special interests. So we can't let that happen either. I intend on holding the Democratic Party accountable to its plans and making sure that we actually get to work in this country, solving problems and putting the country first. That's what matters to me. More importantly than that, though, that's what matters to the people who voted for me just a few short days ago.
Max, what made you to decide to take on what many would say was a hopeless run in this district that includes Staten Island and then a little bit of Brooklyn on the other side of the water? Democrats look at that district in the past and they just give up.
Yeah, well, we never thought it was hopeless, but what I was constantly motivated by was this sense that people had that government used to work. It used to be able to solve problems. We used to be able to have Apollo projects and think boldly in this country. And about 6 years ago or so, I was in Afghanistan and my vehicle hit a bomb. My soldiers came from all across the country and they put their differences aside and got me out of there. And as I was lying there in a hospital bed, a 2-star general tells me, son, 5 years ago, you would have been dead. Only reason why I lived is because of the fact that Congress, in a quiet manner, years earlier, had allocated a couple $100 million to get my vehicle and vehicles like it the armor that it needed to push the explosion away from its core. For just a brief moment, they didn't care about party, they didn't care about their donors, they didn't care about MSNBC or Fox News or social media, and I'm alive today because of that. Now, that should be the story of this country in much bigger ways. So that's the message that we ran on. But more importantly than that, that's the mantra that we're going to govern with, because we didn't get into this just to win one race. I want to stay in office long enough so I can make some real change.
Max Rose, Democratic Congressman-elect, thank you very much for joining us tonight. Really appreciate it.
Thank you so much again for having me. A real honor.
Thank you. Thanks for checking out our YouTube channel. Subscribe by clicking on the button below for more from The Last Word and the rest of MSNBC.